Hey everyone, Sev here. Today I'm here to do my first ever casual deck profile for the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. This is honestly one of the decks I looked into I saw a TGS anime video on it and I latched onto it. I saw it, I was really hooked. I thought it was really cool. I thought the whole concept of the deck was pretty cool. But obviously, this deck has tons of weaknesses, and it's not extremely strong, as most zombie strategies are. And if you looked at the title and the thumbnail, you'll know what deck I'm talking about. But yeah, I'll go over everything, like how to make it a little bit more competitively viable, um, and like the strengths and weaknesses of the deck, and things I'd change around just to make it better. Onto the deck profile. Oh. Also, one thing to note: this is easily one of my more beautiful deck profile, like one of my more high rarity decks. First off, we're playing triple Heijin or Hajun. I always called it Hajun. I think it might be Heijin actually. Now that I think about it, Heijin, the winged Mayakashi. This is the start of your deck. You normally special summon this. You special summon any Mayakashi monster from your deck except himself, and then once per turn, this last line of text is really weird, but once per turn, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Mayakashi monsters. This deck is extremely xenophobic, so if you're gonna slip in like extra deck slots for like generic zombie stuff, then good luck weaving it into your combo because it'll be very hard to do. Like I was a while ago before like Icicle came out, I was messing around with a Eldritch version of this deck. And oh my god, you'd have to do like your Eldritch grind stuff first, and then you go into this stuff, and then by then hopefully your opponent is just like out of gas. Double Daki, the Graceful Mayakashi. I'm a proponent of only playing one of this card. However, I'm playing a specific build of this deck to where playing one is not viable. So two it is. Some builds play three, and those builds mainly play Potted Desires. If you want to go a little bit budget, then you can play Desires. Just bump this up to 3, and there's some stuff you can cut to in order to make that change less painful. This card is honestly extremely broken. Yuki Misume, the Ice Mayakashi. Foolish Burial any zombie monster just to get a free body on board. Even if you're not, even if you can't synchro climb with it, linking off into it and getting Daki back, to do your full link stuff is honestly pretty good. And you can dump Mizuki with this too. You can dump El Ghul, Mizera, other generic zombie cards. This card is extremely nuts. Thank God this archetype is extremely xenophobic. Otherwise, this would be Mayakashis would be the way to go for zombies. One copy of Xiaofu, the Wheeled Mayakashi. Again, a beautiful secret. All these secret rares look so beautiful, but what this card does is if it's normal special summon, target a Mayakashi monster in the graveyard except himself. Special summon it in defense position, but negate its effects. And then it has the same really weird once per turn you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except Mayakashi monsters. However, we're playing pure, so that isn't necessarily an issue. Xiaofu is more of recovery, climbing back up on the synchro ladder. It gets interrupted. You normal summon the Xiaofu, you bring back Daki, and you just start climbing again, and then Daki can summon back over and over. Next up, we're playing double Yasha, the Skeletal Mayakashi. This card's effect rarely comes up. In fact, it's not really all that relevant because we're using it as a small world bridge. Because it's a dark, it has nothing in common with Heijin, Daki, Yuki Musume, or even Xiaofu. So we can use it to bridge into any one of these. Which, that's one thing I really like about this deck, is that it bridges essentially by itself. One copy of Mizuki. During the local Yu-Gi-Oh tournament I was playing in, I didn't have any Mizukis, and it was sorely missed. Mizuki it's an old card, but my god, is it so brilliant. Being able to revive any of your Mayakashis, especially giving you a towers, even for the turn, is pretty nuts, especially this format. But yeah, one copy of Mizuki. You could experiment with 2. I wouldn't recommend 3 because at that point you're just bricking on Mizukis and you have no consistent way to mill your deck. Next up, 3 copies of El Ghul Mizera. I realized in saying that you shouldn't play 3 Mizuki. Well, to be quite fair, I just wanted you could easily get away with running 2 El Ghul Mazera. I wouldn't recommend only playing 1, due to how common banishment in this game is now. Like, Al Ghul Mazera, if it gets banished aside from its effect, it's gone. Like, there's no, like, you could do, like, burial from a different dimension. That'd be the only, like, way to get it back. But yeah, Al Ghul Mazera is honestly a pretty decent card, and if you reduce its level, Daki can climb into Yoko, which gets you back on your synchro ladder. Then, just hand traps, triple bell, triple crow, just kind of generic stuff. And all, like, crow isn't necessarily like a bridge. Well, actually, it kind of is. If, hold on, if Small World counts level, which yes, it does. So all of these cards are actually Small World bridges if you actually learn them. So like DD Crow can bridge with Yasha, which can bridge into Heijin, which is extremely weird to say, but it's actually like a play. Like, you can banish a Crow and a Yasha, and you can get your starter out of it. Or like, you can banish El Ghul Mazera, bridge into Yasha, which can bridge into this, or again Heijin. Like, again, Yasha ties a lot of things together through Small World, which kind of spoils what I'm playing. But again, I'm playing a kind of a weird version. I was experimenting with like Pot of Prosperity, but that's pretty expensive. So I was like, hey, what about Small World? I have 3 copies of Small World, and Small World honestly works just as well for a cheaper version. Triple copies of Mayakashi Return. This card is honestly pretty nutty, Professor. Like, you can just add any Mayakashi card, and with a card that basically says no summoning from anywhere but the graveyard and banished for your turn, that's pretty nuts. Like, this card is pretty nice. You'll always want to use this or save this for like searching the trap, but if you have another way to get the trap, then honestly using this to search like an extender, it's all right. 3 copies of Triple Tactics. Again, like, I played this for locals, and my locals is somewhat pretty competitive, so like I knew like I'd be interrupted, and I figured it'd be mainly monster heavy, and so I figured like Triple Tactics was the way to go. Then 3 copies of Small World. If you can't get Small World, play 2 copies of Pot of Desires. That frees you up. You can cut Yasha, and you can like play like 3 copies of Daki and other power 1-ofs, like other zombie powers, like power cards. 1 Foolish, 1 Called by the Grave, 1 for 1. Called by to stop hand traps, Foolish because it's a zombie deck, and 1 for 1 to get Heijin. And then that is all for the spell cards. Onto the traps. We're playing, oh, if I can get it. Oh, there you go. 3 copies of Ghost Meets Girl, a masterful Mayakashi Shiranui saga. Oh my god, please stop making these names really long. Basically, you tribute a Mayakashi or a Shiranui Synchro or Link monster. Neither player can special summon monsters from the hand, deck, or extra deck. For the rest of the turn, banish this card from your graveyard, target one of your banished zombie monsters, return to the graveyard. This card is nuts, and essentially, like, if you flip this, if your opponent doesn't have Bestials, they're boned. Like, they're not living past that turn. Like, if you can resolve this and you can get like Mizuki out, man oh man, you're in a very good position to win. 1 Mayakashi Metamorphosis. Not a lot of people play this card. I think it's nuts. It allows you to recur your banished Mayakashi monsters. So one thing that the special summoning from the graveyard, like reversing down the synchro ladder goes, you need to banish one other zombie monster from your graveyard, which I actually kind of forgot about at locals. And so my last round I kind of cheated. That's fine though. We ended up tying. Like, he would have won it, like, because it was like game 2, and I just kept chump blocking. But I had enough zombies to chump block, I should say. Like, I wasn't like, I had the zombie fuel to chump block, but I wasn't like cheating. Like, I could have, like, it's not like I was like doing something that I couldn't. But anyway, enough explaining. And then yeah, like, Metamorphosis is just a reborn to get back banished Mayakashis, and then Trap Trick to get Ghost Meets Girl. You really want to see Ghost Meets Girl. It's an extremely powerful card. Um, yeah, it's an extremely powerful card. That's all I can say. Onto the extra deck, we're playing 2 Wheel Boy. Basically, when it's summoned back from the graveyard, your Mayakashis are just immune to battle destruction until the end of the turn, I believe. Yeah, until the end of the turn, your monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Okay, you're playing double of every synchro. I'll just explain what each does very briefly. So Tsuchigomo mills both players for 3. In this format, that's an extremely terrible effect to do. In previous formats, like in Legacy of the Duelist, I'd use this to get information as to what my opponent was playing, even if that was risking, because there's not a lot of just generic, if this card is sent to the graveyard, cards in the game. So like milling 3 off the top of the opponent's deck really allows you to clue yourself into what the opponent is playing. I don't know why I was focusing on my hand. But I also use this card to mill someone out when I couldn't beat them because they had a 5k towers. Tengu non-target pops a spell trap. Yep, non-target pops a spell trap when summoned back from the graveyard. Yoko non-target pops a monster. And then Gasha becomes a towers when summoned from the graveyard. Basically, this, if a link monster is destroyed, you summon this back. Yoko, if that's destroyed, summon it back. Tengu, if Yoko's destroyed, summon it back. Tsuchigomo, if Tengu's destroyed, summon it back. And then Oboro, if Tsuchigomo's destroyed, summon it back. Basically, it's like one big ladder, and that's all for the synchro monsters. I'd cut Gasha down to 1 to play 2 Yuki-Onna, the Ice Mayakashi. This card is honestly worthless. Like, both of its effects suck. But, playing 2 comes up a lot more than a level 11 synchro monster. So, yeah. Double Yuki-Onna, the Icicle Mayakashi. Playing this at any ratio other than 2 should be considered heresy, and you should be put to death if you're playing this at 1. Because you want to see this at 3, especially if you're playing Pot of Prosperity. You can banish 1 copy. Or like, if you're playing doubles of all the synchros, you can just, boom, free Prosperity for 6. But yeah, on special summon, you target an effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, and then you banish it from your graveyard. Summon back one of your zombie synchro monsters for free. Sorta, kinda. Double missed opportunity to say Yuki-Onna, the iciest icicle list Mayakashi, but Yuki-Onna, the absolute zero Mayakashi. This is supposedly the boss monster. Basically, it's a link 4 that says you get the effects of your opponent's banished monsters if a monster is special summoned from the graveyard, from either graveyard, or a monster effect is activated in the graveyard, except the damage step. Target one other face-up monster on the field, changes attack to 0, and if you do, negate its effects. And then that effect is a twice per turn effect. So, like, this, it's essentially a ladder. You climb up the synchro portion, then you go up the link portion, and then you can fall back down it if your opponent destroys it. However, they need to be destroyed. If they're sent to the graveyard, they will not activate, and your loop is broken. And with like Druisworm running around, like, cards being sent to the graveyard is far too common, which is the one thing that really sucks about this deck, is that if they find a way to, like, most meta decks can easily break this climbing loop. Easily can break it. So, like, keeping this as like the ladder as consistent as possible, you really do need your opponent to go into the battle phase, because like it's far too common for this to just be like, oh well, now I can't float anymore, and now like this deck does not do 1 card comebacks very easily, at least. So on to my final thoughts of the deck profile, and you guys can get on your way. Alright, so for final thoughts of the deck, I think Mayakashi, like, in in a format where it's like just in general more generic, I think the deck could be quite good. Actually, there you go. That's the angle I was at before. I think the deck can be quite good if the format is kind of generic and unspecified, because people are trying to figure stuff out, and so like again, this deck is a lot. It like in the older formats, this deck is a lot better because destruction is more common, sending to the graveyard is less common, and decks have fewer outs to towers monsters than they do now. But even then, like still they have like a fair amount of outs to towers monsters. But this deck is really flexible. You can go with like a little bit more of a generic zombie version using things like Immortal Dragon, Qiangxi the Spiritualist, I think. Um, Someone in my locals asked me why I wasn't playing Shiranui Solitaire, and I explained to him like Solitaire only summons zombie tuner monsters, and in this deck, summoning a zombie tuner monster, it's not like Unizombie. You're summoning Daki, and Daki by itself is no bueno. Unizombie by itself, however, can set up some pretty decent zombie combos, but Daki by itself doesn't set up anything. Um, I saw on Instagram from a user called Turtle YGO. They had a like a little bit like of a fun event type thing at their locals, and someone topped with Mayakashi, and they were playing Lord of the Heavenly Prison. I think that's a pretty decent tech, and it's something I'm willing to explore too in my Mayakashi build, because it protects Ghost Meets Girl and it prevents from its destruction. And also you get a free body, plus you get a guaranteed set Ghost Meets Girl or Metamorphosis in that, for example. Like, I think that's pretty decent to be able to summon back like a Yoko on your opponent's turn and pop one of their monsters. Like, I think that's pretty good. Or even a Tengu if they're playing like a back row deck. And like again, I think playing Lord of the Heavenly Prison is a pretty good option. And zombies is unironically one of the most sleeper supported archetype or types in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh. Like, there's dragons, there's warriors, and then there's zombies in my opinion. Sure, psychics are like in close contention for that number 3 spot, mainly because of emergency teleport, but zombies have so much just generic support. It's insane. Vampire Sucker, Book of Life, Vampire Fraulein, Yasha, I believe is the card's name. You have Unizombie, Shiranui Solitaire. You have Avenged Savior. Even like the Eldritch cards are technically generic zombie support, because if you control Eldritch the Golden Lord, you can summon any zombie from your graveyard or your deck with Black Awakening or White Destiny. Um, Mizuki, Gozuki, like all those cards are extremely generic zombie support, and zombie is like it's not necessarily like sure there's single archetypes for zombies. There's Shiranui, there's the Mayakashi, there's the Eldritch, there's the vampires. You know, you have all of that, but really, it's just all kind of condensed under the umbrella of zombies. So like there's Doom King Baylor Droge, Zombie World, Glow Up Bloom. Oh my God, Zombie Banshee, I believe, or Banshee something. The card that you banish it from your hand or no, your field or graveyard, play Zombie World from your deck. Like that card, like that's technically generic zombie support. Like zombies, like it's one of those art, like it's one of those like any zombie deck can be in good hands from the amount of generic zombie support you have. Um, One like obviously some changes that I make to the deck is if you want to play Pot of Desires instead of Small World, cut the Yashas. You might want to cut Xiaofu or like move him to the side deck. I like Xiaofu as like a personal tech, but if you don't like him, you can move him to the side. Play double Pot of Desires. Play a third Daki. Play Monster Reborn. You can even play 3 copies of Book of Life or even Zombie Reborn for that matter. Um, Again, like Mayakashi, it's extremely experimental, and that's one thing that I think is really cool about the deck, is you can really experiment. You can really get your hands. You can like if you can find like the dedicated time to work out the deck, then you can really grind at the deck. Like it's insane. Um, like again, like there's the Eldritch build that I was playing with. It grinded out Eldritch Orcus back when that was like a decent deck. Like, and this was before Icicle. This was before Ghost Meets Girl. Like, it legitimately grinded out that deck because it has two legs that are fully functional within the deck. Plus, you have really powerful tools like Constellar Pleiades, um, oh, jeez, Avenged Savior, Vampire Sucker. You have the BLS link even, like you and Gustav Max. Like you have extremely powerful extra deck tools you can get with the Eldritch portion. Plus, Black Awakening allows you to summon Agent from the deck essentially for free, so you can play like 7 copies of the card in your deck. Like again, this deck is extremely experimental. Like you can like it really depends on what you feel like is the best. I think this current format, um, don't play this deck, but if you really want to, I think playing probably like the Eldritch portion and having like a really good grind game and a really good control game is the best way to go. Um, but yeah, let me know what you thought about the deck down below. Let me know if I've got you hooked on Mayakashis like I got hooked on Mayakashis from TGS Anime. I think, this is my personal opinion, I think all of the Mayakashi cards look beautiful in Secret Rare. And when I ordered them, this was long before Magnificent Mavens came out, so they were not going to be reprinted. It was Hidden Summoners or bust. So like I got them all in Secret Rare, and I was just like, oh my god, they're so beautiful. And I saw like they were reprinted in Ultra and Mavens. I saw them, I was just like, God, it's so inferior to the Secret Rare versions. Like they're so beautiful as Secret Rares. Like you really like you see the side by side comparison, you're just like, man, they're beautiful Secret Rares, and truly they are. Like they're beautiful Secret Rares. I love the Secret Rare rarity, that and Ultimate Rare. I think those are some of like the coolest rarities. But enough of me rambling. I'll let you go about your day. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in another video. Be good people.